An old boxing gym. The walls are worn, soaked in sweat and history. Mike Tyson sits in his usual corner, feeling the weight of the years on his shoulders. His hands are clasped together, his gaze lost in the distance. Championship belts, victories, losses, everything feels like a distant whisper from the past. But that day, a single piece of paper would bring the past back to life. An elderly gym owner approaches, holding a yellowed envelope. Gym owner, Mike, Cus D'Amato wrote this years ago. You never opened it? Tyson looks at the envelope in his hands. His fingers tremble. A heaviness fills his chest. This was a letter from the man who had been like a father to him. And he had never opened it. Years ago, Mike Tyson was young. His punches hit like a storm. But after Cus D'Amato's death, everything changed. He won money, fame, victories, but he lost one thing: himself. Luxury parties, scandals, the wrong people. For Tyson, boxing was no longer an art, it was just a battlefield. As the days passed, his rage in the ring grew. His punches were no longer strategic, they were fueled by uncontrolled anger. But today, the old envelope in his hands signaled that it was time to face the past. Mike opened the letter. The words inside whispered to him from beyond time. Mike, by the time you read this, I may not be here, but I want you to know something. Your biggest opponent was never the man in front of you in the ring. Your biggest opponent has always been yourself. Belts come and go. Money is spent, lost. But if you lose your character, that's when you truly become a loser. Tyson's eyes filled with tears. His fingers clenched the paper tightly. These words shook a man who had once stood against thousands in the ring. Because Cus was right, Mike Tyson had never been fighting his opponents. He had been fighting the rage inside him all along. Mike Tyson couldn't sleep that night. He thought about his past mistakes, the people he had lost, the ones who had cried for him. For the first time in years, he stepped back into the ring. But this time, he was determined to train not just his body, but his mind as well. He started waking up early, returned to intense training, remembered his old discipline. But most importantly, he learned to control his anger. True strength isn't measured by how hard you hit, but by the power of your mind. And for the first time, Tyson truly felt strong. Years later, Mike Tyson returned to his old gym. A young boxer approached him, excitement in his voice. Young boxer, Mr. Tyson, how did you become so strong? Mike smiled, his eyes carrying the wisdom of a man who had lived through everything. Real strength is knowing yourself, kid. And sometimes, you need to remember the words of those who guided you. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the letter he had kept for years. Sometimes, the greatest lessons are hidden in letters forgotten by time. In life, sometimes you lose your way, but the words of those who truly care about you can always bring you back. Mike Tyson's greatest victory wasn't a championship match. It was the journey of finding himself again. True championship is winning the fight within yourself. If this story touched you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Small details create big transformations.